Good morning. Yes, it is still morning. Hello, everyone. It is Saturday, November 21st, which means it's one day before Sunday, November 22nd. And I am going to take a few minutes and talk to you about this Sunday's message. We do this to help folks who can't make it to service, and you don't really have time to watch the full 45 minutes or hour. So we try to give you a quick update on the message in like 10 minutes, so that if and when you go to small group, you have a bit of an idea of what we talked about. And so without further ado, let's just go ahead and get on into it. We're going to take a look at one of the most famous Bible stories in the Bible. We're going to take a look at Jesus washing the feet of his disciples at the Last Supper. And we'll be in John chapter 13, verses 1 through 17. John 13, 1 through 17. It's going to be this humility. And humility is something that, as the followers of Jesus, it's something we want to try and emulate. But we do have trouble with this, because true humility is often different than what we think humility is. And right now, we live in a place during a time when humility is usually one of two things. It's either false or non-existent. And we're in a narcissistic culture. You look around us, everything's geared towards me, or I. And it's hard to learn humility in a culture like that. And also, I don't think that we always understand what true humility like. And so that is what we're going to talk about. I once met a pastor years ago who told me he had a fantastic message on humility prepared. He was just waiting for a group large enough to teach it. Yeah, that's supposed to be a joke. I'm sure that everybody watching is laughing right now. And so we see over and over in the Bible again this idea of humility. James 4:10 says, "Humble yourself in the presence of the Lord, and he will exalt you." 1 Peter 5:6 says, "Therefore humble yourselves under the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you at the proper time." And we see verses in Matthew. We see it all throughout the Old Testament. Proverbs 22:4 is a good example, and 2 Chronicles 7:14 is that famous Bible verse that says, "If my people would humble themselves and pray," right? We're familiar with that. And so humility is not something new, especially if you've been a believer for a while. But we often miss the mark. And the upside of missing the mark is it gives us something to strive for. And as we look at this story and Jesus' interaction with his disciples, we get a great lesson in that. And you know how I forgot exactly what I was going to say, but I guess that's just an age thing. I'm sneaking up on my 50s here in a couple of years. So some of the foundational properties of some of the foundational principles of humility are this. There's a few things that we pulled out of there. One of those is that humility, it does not discriminate and should be expressed to all. And so this is the idea that, you're not really humble if you're only humble with some people. All right? Humility has to be basically a complete lifestyle. Humility turns the structure of authority upside down, because if we see this picture of Jesus at the Last Supper washing the feet of his disciples, okay, you don't wash somebody's feet by standing up. You have to crouch down, you have to bow your head. And it's no accident that Jesus did that. And that turns authority upside down, because here we have Jesus, we have God in the flesh on his knees doing one of the dirtiest jobs in a household. That was, as far as the slave rank structure went in a house, the slave that was on foot duty had the lowest job. And here's Jesus not even taking a minute to hesitate, on his knees cleaning the feet of his disciples. And you'll notice, right, in this story, Judas has not left yet. So as Jesus is on his knees washing the feet of his disciples, the one who betrayed him is there, and he knows it. He knows Peter is going to deny him 3 times, and he knows that at some point those disciples are going to split. They're going to get scared and they're going to hide. And still he's on his knees, humbling himself, washing the feet of these men. And that's a big deal. You need to understand that it wasn't simple road grit that they picked up. During this time, it wasn't uncommon that people might throw their trash out in the roads. So who really knows what you could be walking through? And the King of Kings is taking care of business. Let's see, what else do we learn? Matthew 18:4 says, "Whoever then humbles himself as this child, he is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven." And that supports that idea of humility flipping authority upside down. And what we begin to learn is that we become great in the eyes of Jesus by humbling ourselves to serve one another. And that's not just folks that are part of our church, that's everybody. There's a funny, a unique story about Samuel Morse that I'll share before we get out of here today. This guy, Samuel Morse, was an American inventor. He was a painter. He invented the single-wire telegraph. He also co-developed the Morse code. And, I mean, he has a list of accomplishments that's fairly long. And he was once asked if he'd ever encountered situations where he didn't know what to do. Right? And we've all been there. Hey, I don't know what to do right now. And his response was this: more than once. And whenever I could not see my way clearly, I knelt down and I prayed to God for light and understanding. Morse received a ton of honors for inventing the telegraph, as well he should have. But he felt undeserving. And here's what he said about it. He said, "I have made a valuable application of electricity, not because I was superior to other men, but solely because God, who meant it for mankind, must reveal it to someone, and he was pleased to reveal it to me." This attitude comes from knowing our place in the universe and knowing God's place in the universe. Because, see, we just live here, but he built it. And so here's some things that we can pull out of this passage. Humility is unannounced, okay? You don't stand up. Jesus didn't stand up and say, "Okay, everybody, go ahead and open up your Facebook and hit the live button because I'm going to wash your feet and I want you to see how humble I am." He didn't do that. What we see in the scripture is he just kind of just got up and he girded his loins and he put his towel on and he got to work. Humility is willing to be served. There's 2 sides to humility, right? There's the humility to serve and take care of others, but sometimes you've got to let people take care of you. And for us guys in particular, that's tough. We can take care of ourselves, right? We're tough, we're men, we're guys. But one of the hardest things to do is to let people serve you. But that's part of humility. We also see that humility includes serving each other, not only Jesus, right? We get stuck in this pattern sometimes where we spend so much time serving the Lord that we forget about those around us. And keep in mind that humility is not a sign of weakness. I mean, Jesus was not weak. With the thought, he could have leveled the Romans and he could have turned all the Pharisees into goats, but he didn't do that. Jesus is the most powerful being that ever walked the earth. And he got on his knees and washed the feet of the disciples. That's a big deal. Humility does not discriminate. You're either humble or you're not. You're not humble to one person and not humble to another because of what they do or where they live. It doesn't discriminate. And the joy of humility can really only be experienced through humility in action. And what I mean by that is that serving others should be right at the top of our list of things to do. Remember the 2 greatest commandments: love God and love people, right? And so love some people, humble yourself and love some people, regardless of who they are or where they are, When you humble yourself and you serve others, you don't say, well, yeah, sure, I'll give you, we'll give your family some food as long as you promise to come to our church. That's not humility. Okay, that's bargaining and bribery, and that's not good. So the bottom line is this, that living a life of true humility will lead others to have these turning points in their lives. It will lead them to Jesus. I'm going to finish with one story here. And it goes like this. Many, many years ago, and I mean many years ago, there was this Christian professor called Stuart Blackie, and he was over at the University of Edinburgh, and that's in Scotland. And he was listening to his students present these oral readings. And this young man comes up, and he got up to do his reading, and he held his book in the wrong hand. Apparently, you're supposed to hold it in your right hand. And the professor just came unhinged. He said, "Take your book in your right hand and be seated." At this harsh rebuke, okay, the student held up his right arm, and he did not have a hand on the end of it. So, as you would imagine, it got real awkward real fast in that room. And then for a moment, the professor hesitated, and he gave it a little bit of thought. And then he walks up to the student, and he put his arm around him, and with tears streaming down his face, he said, I never knew about it. Please, will you forgive me?" His humble apology made a lasting impact on that young man. So fast forward a number of years, and the story is being told at some other large gathering of believers. And at the close of the meeting, a man came forward, and he turned to the crowd, and he raised his right arm. And it ended at the wrist. He did not have a hand, and he said, "I was that student. Professor Blackie led me to Christ." But he never he never could have done that if the professor didn't make that wrong thing he did right by humbling himself and apologizing. So when we humble ourselves, people come to faith. With all that said, I hope to see you tomorrow or another day. Please remember that if you have any needs at all, go ahead and, my email's around here somewhere. Go ahead and send me an email to this address, and we'd love to help you out. If you have my phone number, of course, you can reach me that way. A quick update on our Thanksgiving meals. They're all spoken for. As usual, our church, within like 2 days, had taken care of business. So thank you all very much. And know that Christmas is just around the corner. And as usual, I am pretty sure we'll be involved in that as well on the community level. Thank you. Have a fantastic day.